Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, a couple things I want to talk about today. I've already discussed both of these things. I want to go a little bit more in depth. So the rumor right now is exactly what I said. Number one, the Bengals want to keep all three of their players, including Trey Hendrickson. I've been saying that for weeks now. Number two, signing their two receivers is not going to change things. Why? Because Jamar Chase and T. Higgins already have a $48 million cap hit this year prior to their new contracts. Getting new contracts not only doesn't disqualify... Let me turn this off. Yeah, this freaking heater. Not only does it not disqualify them, it's actually going to free up space in 2025. The only real question is, can you navigate future cost? That's it, because obviously you kind of backload some of these contracts. But even that is navigable for a couple reasons. Number one, Trey Hendrickson's already pretty old. So you're going to structure a contract that's probably, is a legitimate maybe 2 years. And then after that, it starts to become much more easy to get away from. You can restructure people. You can do all kinds of stuff. Number two, every team has big contracts. Every team's got big contracts. Everyone's so focused on, you're paying two receivers that much money? Yeah. Who else are they paying? How many top-tier corners are they paying? How many top-tier offensive linemen? How many top-tier safeties, running backs, tight ends, linebackers, defensive tackles, edge rushers? As of now, it's zero. It's Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Orlando Brown. Cap hits at $15 million. Trey Hendrickson is the only question mark. So they have four contracts over $10 million. That's not shockingly unreasonable. The Packers right now have a $30 million cap hit for Jordan Love, a $26 million cap hit for Rashawn Gary, a $25 million cap hit for Jair, a $20 million cap hit for Kenny Clark, an $18 million cap hit for Xavier McKinney, a $18 million cap hit for Elton Jenkins, and $11 million for Josh Jacobs. And we're sitting here with $32 million saying, why aren't you signing everybody? Why don't you go get Trey Hendrickson? With what money? We're signing so many people, so much money. There's plenty of money. The Bengals have Joe Burrow's the biggest one for sure, but they have 3 over 20 and 4 over 10, not including Trey Hendrickson, pending what that's going to do. But again, in 2025, his cap hit potentially goes down. So they have more than, and they have almost $30 million in cap space right now. And that's with their old contracts. So I don't know the actual details, but as of right now, Jamar Chase's contract was about $22 million. The expected contract puts him at about $20 million for a savings of about $2 million or so. T. Higgins was looking at with his tag $26 million. That's expected to go down to about $17 to $20 million. So potentially they're adding $10 million to their already $27 million in salary cap. And that's already with Trey Hendrickson's $19 million cap hit on here. So even if they increase that to 20, all that's going to do is probably keep them at about $30 million in cap space. There's no issue here. There isn't. Now, you start looking at future years. Okay, let's say it's, 2040, call it 60 million between those three players, which is crazy, but let's just say it is. The cap space they have right now is $140 million. That includes Joe Burrow and Orlando Brown for a combined $70 million. Add 60 on top of that, they still have about $80 million in cap space. They have a very cheap garbage roster where they pay nobody because they have nobody. Paying Trey Hendrickson is not going to be a problem. I don't see any. I mean, seriously, anybody, go look at the Bengals. You can go to Over the Cap. You can go to Spot Track, whatever. Just Google it. Cincinnati Bengals cap space. With Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, and Orlando Brown accounting for over $15 million each, they have almost $30 million in cap space. Higgins and Jamar their new contracts are going to lower their cap space, their cap hit. Now, they can free up $16 million if they get rid of Trey Hendrickson and get a haul for it, and I hope they do for our sake, assuming he ends up a Packer. If not, I hope he stays there. But they don't need $16 million. They don't need $16 million any more than we need $16 million. For what? So they can, sign a guy like Trey Hendrickson? They can give him a new contract, and his cap number probably stays about the same. Even if it goes up a little bit, it doesn't matter. It could be $40 million, and they could afford it. I think the other thing is people get too hung up in the totals. Oh man, that's a $150 million contract, and that's $300 million for two players. That's crazy. Forget that. Forget $300 million. You don't know what's real and what's not. All that matters is the cap management from year to year. I keep seeing people use the full contract number and pretending it's applying like to this year. $150 million for one player. They got no money left. That's half your salary cap. No, that's spread over multiple years, and half of that money's fake. What are you even talking about? Again, this is where people get into that the salary cap is fake. It's not fake. You just can't do math. And so you see tweets like this from Diana Rossini. Cincinnati is working to retain Trey Hendrickson, and discussions are ongoing between the two sides. The Bengals are attempting to do what many in the league thought difficult and keep and pay all three of their stars. I think that's a typo, but that's fine. We get it. Why? Why is it difficult? What's difficult about it? Everybody's rich and nobody spent money in free agency because there were no free agents. Salary cap went up and nobody spent money. And the Bengals have nobody. Who are they paying? Well, their quarterback got a huge contract and they got two receivers. Great. And half the league's paying disgusting amounts of money to their quarterbacks. And half of those teams have big wide receiver contracts. And then they also have corner and edge and all these other high-priced positions. Every team has a bunch of big contracts. Now, if they had 5 already and they tried to sign 3 new ones who didn't already have contracts to take it from 5 to 8, that might be a little tricky. But they basically have 5 and are trying to extend 3 of the 5 to keep the number at 5. So my contention has been that they will re-sign him. That hasn't really changed, and that's kind of what I expect to happen. Again, it may go a different way, but even then, even if we clear that hurdle, not that huddle. Right sport, wrong analogy. Well, wrong sport, I guess, the hurdle part. But anyways, even if we clear that hurdle, now there is a 31-team race to bring in Trey Hendrickson. So the odds are pretty astronomical, and I wouldn't necessarily expect it to go in any kind of a... I mean, I'm kind of to the point where if he doesn't sign with the Bengals, I'm more nervous. Just because, as I've said, the odds of him going somewhere that's going to make me physically ill are higher than the odds of him coming here. Not because, quote-unquote, Goot don't do nothing, but because basic mathematics. Also getting a lot of buzz, probably partially just because there's no news, but also because of the size of it. A new deal has been done for Derek Stingley. Texans All-Pro cornerback Derek Stingley Jr. has agreed to a 3-year, $90 million extension, including $89 million guaranteed. At $30 million base value per year, Stingley is now the highest paid defensive back in NFL history. The cornerback market has been completely reset. Just talked about, things being fake and whatnot. Just understand when we see these things, we really have no idea what's going on. Just imagine being at like a Mexican restaurant and you know how sometimes the server will come out and you see somebody else's food and you're like, oh, dang, that looks good. Just imagine it's like burritos, though, and you're like, oh, that looks so good. It's like, how do you know? You can't even see what's in it. How do you know it's good? All you can see is a burrito, like a tortilla. What do you mean it looks good? Might just be like beans and broccoli in that thing, dude. Further detail later from Jeremy Fowler. Derek Stingley Jr.'s new deal with the Texans includes a 5th-year option that he was slated to receive in 2026. So he's under the Texans' contractual control for 5 seasons, 2 from his rookie deal, plus the 3-year, $90 million extension reached today. So this is one of the things where you're able to give these massive contracts, because you're kind of diluting it. You already have 2 more years of very low amounts of money. So really what they're doing is they're saying, okay, let's look at over 5 years, how much do we want to pay somebody? Let's say you want to give somebody, these aren't the real numbers, but let's just say for the sake of argument, you feel like Derek Stingley is worth $20 million per year. And let's just say on his rookie deal, he's got, I don't know, let's call it $10 million. So if he's worth, let's say you're okay paying him on average $20 million a year, the total of the contract is 5 years, $100 million. But that's not what you're going to send off to the media, because you're going to say it's a 3-year extension, subtract the $10 million that was already on the contract, and call it a 3-year, $90 million deal. Actually, that worked out perfectly. Didn't even mean for it to. And so everybody says, man, it's a 30-year deal, $30 million per year. And it, I guess, kind of is, but not really. It's a 5-year deal worth $100 million. That's it. And that's essentially what's happening here. In fact, Wendell Ferreira commented, in real money, it's 5 years, 22.6. So 22.6 times 5 is $113 million in total. So it's really a 5-year, $113 million deal, not a 3-year, $90 million deal. But you can make it seem like, oh, he's getting $30 million a year. That's the new market. It's $30 million. It's not $30 million, because most people don't have 2 rookie years still sitting there. So if 22.6 is the high, and the problem is you're going to have agents and players using that number, and it's a fake number. I remember this happened with somebody else recently. I think Devontae wanted part of that because he wanted this massive, because I think it was DeAndre Hopkins was a very similar situation where he got like $30 million a year or something wild. It might not have been that much at the time, but I think it actually was, though. And at that point, it was very similar to this. It was just way out of line. Like, nobody's ever even gotten close. And I don't think the next several even got to that number. But I think Devontae ended up getting like 25, 26 or something crazy. And it ended up being a lot more than what DeAndre Hopkins got. So, yeah, the bottom line with a lot of this stuff is the money is very, very fake, and you got to figure out exactly what they're talking about. It's not a fake deal. I mean, it is 3 years, $90 million, but it's a 3-year, $90 million extension tacked on to 2 very cheap years, which have been restructured in a way to take a 5-year, $113 million deal, which is $22.6 million per year, and put it over 5 years. That's the real number. And then, of course, there's still fake things built in. How much is actually guaranteed? Yeah, it says $89 million guaranteed, which makes it seem even crazier, because it's like, holy crap, it's a fully guaranteed contract. Well, no, it's a lot, but it's not basically 100%. It's 89 divided by 113. It's 79% guaranteed. So after we get back from the break, I want to elaborate on something else I've kind of talked about, and I want to really hammer it home. In fact, good thing about doing these little projects is even some things that should seem obvious that have just never really occurred to me before. But speaking of the propaganda, we're going to dig into some more propaganda, and that is this free agent class and how some teams have absolutely killed it, bro. They've crushed it. Everybody got better, bro. Okay, well, we're actually going to look at it, not just say stupid things. We'll be right back. So, quiz time. I'm such a... I'm turning into like the worst teacher in the world. You know, when they ask you questions, especially open-ended questions where you never really know what they're looking like. I have an answer, but I don't know if it's the answer you're looking for. I hated that so much. And they're like, nobody knows. You don't know the answer? It's like, well, I might. I don't know. I don't know specifically what you're looking for. Let me be that guy for a second. What have I been saying about free agency and the thing that people are not talking about? Let me give you a hint. The Detroit Lions added a corner. Pretty good corner. What did they lose? A corner, right? In fact, they didn't just lose a corner. They lost 3 corners. Carlton Davis, Ifedi Melifonwu, and Kendall Vildor. They've got several others that haven't been signed, but they also are free agents that they have not re-signed, including Emmanuel Mosley and Khalil Dorsey. That makes it 5 corners. So we talk about how they added DJ Reed. We don't talk about how they lost 5 corners. And so rather than looking at it and saying how much better did they get when you add this one but subtract 5, we just say they added DJ Reed, now they're better, because everything else stays exactly the same. They're the exact same team. Nothing else changes. Them at their best is exactly who they are, will be, and always will be, plus DJ Reed, boom, that's it. That's the end of the story. What else did they do? Because I heard everybody else in the NFC North got way better. What else did they do? Can you name one other person they signed? I doubt it if you can. Probably because nobody else got a contract worth even $5 million. How about the Bears? The Bears get the most credit. They've signed 3 people for contracts over $10 million. Nobody else over even 2, but they got 3 big signings. I don't want this to be a trick question because they also did trade for people. This is just free agency, but this just for illustrative purposes. And this isn't even about the quality necessarily because we've already gone over that. That's a whole other conversation. But they got Deo Odenigbo, the pass rusher, not good. Grady Jarrett, the defensive tackle, not good anymore. And Drew Dahlman, the center. Real good run blocker. They also added Scott Daly, Tarvarius Moore, Steven Carlson, Olamide Zacchaeus, and Durham Smythe. So that's 8 people. Again, with trades, we can call it 10. It doesn't really matter. Do you know how many have signed with other teams / they have so far let walk in free agency? 23. 23 players. How good are those players? Who are those players? Do you know anything about those players? Do you care about those players? Or do you just want to look at the 3 people or 5 people that they brought in and say, boom, they're just better now? Who are the 23 people they just lost? How about the Vikings? They brought in 9 people. How many did the Vikings lose? The answer, 21. Now, I started this little experiment because the Packers have signed less people than anybody else. And I've been saying for a long time they also let less people walk this year because they had less free agents than most people, so they had less to replace. And it's true. There are only 2 teams that lost less free agents, Denver and New England. The vast majority of free agency is replacing people that are gone. And here's the other part that all of us should have realized, but I don't think anybody really did. Because the Packers lost 10 people, but they only signed 2. That's a net loss of 8. That's terrible. When are you going to replace all these other ones? I want you to think for a second how there are, I believe, 257 people that are about to get drafted pretty soon here, in about, a month and a half. On top of that, do you know how many undrafted free agents there are that get signed? I think it's around 700 to 800. So there's an infusion of about 1,000 players that are going to be entering the NFL. But yet, the number of teams and the size of the rosters does not increase. So how does this happen? Well, some of the guys, especially the undrafted free agents, only about 8 to 10% of them, I think, actually make the NFL. And some of the draft picks might not actually make it either, but there's still a massive surplus. What happens? What happens is every year there's a massive turnover. Because the thing that surprised me as I went through this, because I did every single team, Arizona signed 9, they lost 18. Atlanta signed 13, they lost 20. Baltimore signed 6, they lost 18. And I'm looking and I'm saying, well, somebody must have a surplus somewhere. These guys have to go somewhere. The reality is, though, only 2 teams signed more people than they lost. New England and where did the other one go? Washington. That's it. Every other team lost, on average, 9.2 players. The Packers lost 8, so they actually have a net loss that is less than most teams. San Francisco signed 10 players. They lost 24 for a net loss of 14 players. So who did more, San Francisco or Green Bay? Well, they did more, but on a net basis, they lost more people than we did, even by signing 10 people. The Jets signed 13 people. They're still at net minus 11. Tennessee signed 12. They're at net minus 12. I did San Francisco. Miami signed 15 prospects. It is the second most of any team. They lost 27 for a net loss of 12. Every team on average loses over 9 prospects for a grand total of 293. Now, that number is a little bit skewed because there's 2 different buckets. There's, when you look at, go back here for a second, look at the different teams. There are people that they lost through relinquished, which means they signed with somebody else, and then there's available. I added relinquished and available just because I wanted to know for the team how many they lost total. So that's what you would do. But you wouldn't count relinquished in terms of how many are total are lost, because those are people that got signed with other teams. But if I go to the total, it's actually higher at 296 is what it says. But I think that's because some free agents are from, multiple years. They weren't necessarily on a team last year. It doesn't matter. Actually, no, it's higher. It's 384. I was looking at the wrong tab. Bottom line is, though, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of teams in this process, which kind of flies under the radar of what you're doing in this turnover period, is purging part of your roster and making room for the new crop of people coming in. Green Bay could absolutely still sign some people, but as of right now, they're -8, which is pretty standard. They've cleared 8 people off of their team. So all these teams that just got so much better. Did they, though? Again, you can look at the quality if you want to, but at least be honest enough to do that before you just look at people that they signed, pretend that they're way better than they are, completely ignore and disregard the fact that they purged a bunch of people like Cleveland, who lost 23 players and signed 4, by the way. Signed 4, lost 27 for a net of 23. That would be the honest way to assess free agency. So, yeah, they brought in Dayo Odenigbo. Okay, well, they lost to Marcus Walker. Well, they brought in a tight end. Well, they lost Gerald Everett. Well, they brought in, a guard. Well, they lost Tevin Jenkins. And they lost Keenan Allen. Are you factoring that in too, or no? Oh, the Vikings are killing it, bro. They're killing it. They brought in Will Fries, Byron Murphy, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave. They're killing it. Bro, this is the same game plan Minnesota's had every single... When was the last time Minnesota didn't pay a bunch of money for their defensive line? They do it every year. All their defensive tackles are free agents every single year. Javon Hargrave is 32 years old and played 3 games last year, and he's a designated pass rusher at 32 if he even has anything left. Jonathan Allen played a half a season last year. He played 11 games, which includes 3 playoff games because he missed half the regular season or more, and he hasn't graded out positively since 2022. They signed Byron Murphy. He was already on the team. Will Fries, they're giving that guy $17.5 million per year with like 75% of the contract fully guaranteed. He played 5 games last year. He graded out really well, but it was a 5-game sample size, and he has 3 years prior to that and has never graded out positively in 3 years. So maybe the 27-year-old with injury issues that's only played 2,000 snaps in 4 years, 1 full season to his name, including this past season where he only made it 5 games, maybe this guy's going to stay healthy and continue what he started last year, which he's never been able to do throughout the rest of his entire career. Maybe, and yeah, maybe because of that, the Vikings are killing it. Maybe they are. Maybe those signings are just fantastic. I mean, they lost their starting quarterback in Sam Darnold. They lost their safety Cam Bynum to the Colts. They lost Cam Robinson, although they, get their tackle back. They lost Stephon Gilmore and Shaquille Griffin and Dalton Reisner and Jonathan Bullard. Not that, Dan Feeney was necessarily very good, but he's gone. Doesn't make him better. You get what I'm saying? We can't be so simplistic as to just see so-and-so sign so-and-so and then be mad because I wanted to sign a name of somebody, even though I don't even know who that is or how they've been doing lately because I haven't heard their name in years. But I remember when I did hear their name, it was a big deal, and they got drafted kind of early, I think. And now they have them and we don't. So they're cool and we're stupid and I'm mad. Guys, please, I'm begging you not to do this. The Packers' free agency was absolutely middle of the pack. Well, they only signed 2. That's the least of any team. Right, but if you actually look at the net gains, they're right in the middle of the pack. They signed less because they lost less. Some teams signed more because they lost more. Again, Chicago, who actually has lost the 3rd most of any team by signing 8 and losing 23, Detroit at -14 and Minnesota at -12, the Green Bay Packers actually lost less than anybody else in the NFC North. But that's not as fun and exciting as adding people, except when we do add people piss and moan about it because we actually analyze those players and say, actually, those guys aren't very good. And then I say, I know nobody's very good, but we don't. That's not the same standard we apply to the Vikings and the Bears and the Lions. All we apply to them is, did they sign somebody? Except the Lions signed Reed, but they only signed that one guy. So then we apply the other standard, like, well, yeah, but he's good. So you have to either do something or do something good for everybody else. For us, you have to sign a bunch of people and they all have to be really good, even if they don't exist in free agency. Separate standard. Come on, guys. All right, let's take our final break, and then we'll continue on with our little project of running through the draft prospects. We'll do corner next. Just kind of see who checks the boxes. We'll be right back. All right, let's go through the top 200 cornerbacks. Not actually 200 of them, but the top cornerbacks that are in the top 200 prospects. I think rather than going through it and then going back through it a second time, which I started doing, we'll just do it live. That way I can provide a little bit more context. So different standards are going to be applied for each position, and I don't really have anything necessarily set in stone. Like I said, these are kind of broad strokes. Just at a glance being able to see, whatever. Obviously, Travis Hunter is not going to be in the pickable category. He's going to be out of our range, but for the sake of going through it and illustrating, as far as PFF, I'm almost exclusively looking at coverage. The other things might just be tiebreakers, run defense, tackling, whatever. It's not that it's not important, but let's be completely honest about this. Coverage is significantly more important than anything else. He had a 90 coverage grade. The rest was fine, too. He had almost an 80 run defense, but we can just basically disregard that. You got a 90 coverage, you get a 3. So if you don't know what we're doing, it's a scale out of 3, 1, 2, 3. 1 is you don't meet the qualifications, 3 is you do, 2 is, somewhere in the middle. As far as injuries, he may have missed a game. Looks like he might have missed 1, but it doesn't matter. He played 776 total snaps. That is more than enough to fulfill a full season. It wasn't a significant thing. I should be able to see in a glance, that's about a half a season worth, and there's, maybe 300 snaps in there for me to care about the injury thing. As far as production, this is where it gets tough. I mean, fit is tough too, but primarily just looking at interceptions and pass breakups. Again, production is primarily me trying to satisfy the fan base that wants somebody that was productive in school. And I don't think that they would be talking about anything other than interceptions and pass breakups. Now, interceptions are a stupid stat because you can have 4 and it's actually a decent number. You can have 2 and it's like, oh, that's terrible. But when you couple them together, 4 interceptions, 7 pass breakups this past year, I think that's more than adequate. So he fits that. As far as fit, I went back and looked at the Packers corners and I kind of decided vaguely that 195 and above would be a 3. From 180 to 195 or 194 would be a 2, and then sub 180 is when I would start to say maybe you don't really fit. That doesn't mean they would never do it, but it would make me kind of look at it cross-eyed and go, I don't know about that. Travis Hunter would be in the second category. Again, I'm not looking at the official because I'm not pulling up 2 things at once. We can if it's close, but he's at 185. That puts him very comfortably in that number 2 category. Will Johnson, as far as pickable, I'm just going to put him at a 2. Probably out of our range, but there's a slim chance, so we'll just say probably not, but maybe. As far as PFF goes, it's kind of tough because the injuries are an issue for him. He played about a half of a season, but when I look backwards, 550 snaps, 488, it looks like he mostly played. Again, not super digging in, but if I saw another year that was like 200-something, I might look, and if there's multiple recurring injuries, then it would maybe be a 1. Looks like he played about a half a season, just 1 year, so I'll put him down as a 2. Production, the PFF thing is tough because his grades were a 76, but it was only a half of a season. His production was 2 interceptions, 2 pass breakups, but it's only half a season, so I'm kind of leaning on last year. But it looks like the last 2 years, he's kind of mid-70s, so I just put him down as a 2. I figure for a 3, you got to be 80 and above. Injuries, I put him down as a 2. Production, I put him down as a 2 because, again, 4 interceptions isn't bad, but only 2 pass breakups, 6 total. Not the greatest. He had 6 total in his rookie year also. So it's fine, but it's not like a highly productive thing. Jahdae Barron is the closest to 3s all the way across. The only thing I didn't put him in was in the pickable category because there's a good chance he's gone before we get there. But he actually does check all the boxes. PFF looks good. I don't see any injury issues. The production was there. And the fit, being about 200 pounds, also is a good fit. I mean, he's not quite 6 foot, but still, he's a sizable dude. He's bigger than a lot of these guys. After that, I'm just going to say they're all at 3s as far as pickable. Siobhan Revel could go earlier, but let's just say he doesn't. So we'll just kind of disregard that category for the rest of this. The only thing he doesn't really fit would be number 1, injuries. It's tough because he's only got 3 years in college. In his rookie year, he only played 25 snaps. And then in 2024, he was injured aside from just 3 games. So he's only got like 1 full season to his name. So I gave him good marks for PFF because it was an 85 coverage, and even in his 3 games, he managed an 85 coverage. So I checked the PFF box. Injuries, I put him at a 2. Could have put him at a 1, considering 50% of his college career was injured. But whatever, it's just 1 year. Production, I put a 2, but it's kind of iffy because, again, first of all, 2 interceptions, 2 pass breakups in 3 games is kind of a lot, but I can't really base it off of that. The year before that was just 1 interception, which is really bad. But he had 10 pass breakups, which is actually quite good. So I don't know. Call it a 2, call it a 3, whatever you want to call it. And then as far as fit, I got him at exactly 193. That's basically 195, but I put it as a 2 anyways. He's pretty borderline in that category. I figure since I cut him a break with injuries, we'll just call it a 2. Hairston is actually 2s all the way across the board, aside from the category we're not talking about anymore. PFF I put down as a 2. I was torn because he's the exact same thing. He didn't really play in his rookie year. He did play in his second year. In his third year, he was injured for half the season. His 1 good year was solid at 85, but his half of a season this past year was a 66. So I put him down as a 2 because that's a little iffy. Injury, obviously, is a 2. Production is kind of on the fence. 5 interceptions, 4 pass breakups. I mean, 5 interceptions is great, but then the next year was 1 interception, 4 pass breakups. So I don't know. I don't know, man. If you're happy with that, good. If you're not, basically that's what a 2 means. It means I don't know. And then as far as fit, I got him at 186, so he's kind of in that light but fine category. Benjamin Morrison. I'm noticing there's a lot of issues with these corners. A lot of injuries. He played a half a season as well. PFF, I cut him a break because he actually did play the last 2 seasons and had 80s grades, so I figure, okay, that we'll disregard the half a season. Injuries obviously are an issue. Production, I thought he did quite well. Over his first 2 seasons, he had 9 interceptions and 10 pass breakups, which, I figure is quite good. But again, as far as fit, 6 foot 190. So, I mean, there's certainly a prototype here so far, which is 185 to 190 and didn't play last year due to injury. Azaria Thomas is about 200 pounds, so I'll put him in the 3 category there. Production, I put it a 2. PFF, I put it a 2 because they're kind of okay. 1 interception, 5 pass breakups. Coverage grades have consistently been in the 70s, but not seeing a bunch of injury issues. Again, maybe onesie, twosie here and there, but for the most part, he's been playing. Trey Amos, I broke my rule. I did go over to RAS because I desperately wanted just anybody to be 3s all the way across, and we got our first one. And, of course, he's going to Ole Miss, which I'm telling you, that's just my team this year. I said last year it was Kentucky, and the year before that was Texas. Just making a lap around the South here. But, yeah, as far as PFF grades, he had an 86 coverage grade. Injuries, looks like he didn't really have any, maybe in 2023, I don't know, but at Ole Miss, 841 snaps is a ton. Production, 3 interceptions and 10 pass breakups. Prior to that, the production maybe wasn't as good, but he also didn't play as much. Again, I don't know if it was, I'm guessing he just didn't play as much. But, I mean, 3 is relatively low, but 10 pass breakups is a lot. And then as far as fit, he's listed at 6'1", 190 via PFF. Again, I really wanted him to make the cut. I go and check, and sure enough, he's at exactly 195 is what he weighed in at, which was the cutoff for me to give him a 3. So congrats to Trey Amos being our first perfect prospect, although he is 23, which isn't great, but shut up. Darian Porter out of Iowa State is tough. The one category he fits in perfectly is fit. He is 24 years old, which sucks. I don't have an age category, but if I did, he'd be a 1. But he's 6'4", 200 pounds. He's a big boy. The problem is, as far as production, 3 interceptions, 2 pass breakups is not great. I mean, 3 interceptions is okay if you had, like I said, 10 pass breakups or something. But when it's 2, that's not great. As far as injuries, I would have normally given this guy a pass. He missed, I think, 3 games in 2024. But he's had injury issues, it looks like, every year. He had significant injuries in 2023 and 2022. I didn't look into exactly what they were, but he missed significant time in both seasons. So I actually gave him a 1 as far as injuries. I know a lot of guys like Siobhan Revel have big issues because of what happened last year. I'm much more concerned with people that like have never stayed healthy in a season than somebody who had one injury 1 year. I know some of them can be significant, like torn ACLs and whatnot, but that one scares me for sure. And then PFF, I should just give him a 3, but I'm kind of leery of that. He got a 90, so that should be automatic, but there's a problem. Number one, more than half of his games were in the 60s, so it's kind of fluky. Number two, his past 2 years, even though he didn't play much due to injury, he graded in the 60s. So, I don't know, man. I'm kind of leery on this guy. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total games where he graded out well. Giving him a 3 on PFF when he's had 2 injured, not great years, followed by 1 year where he played most games and had 5 good ones compared to, 7 mid games? I'm just going to give him a 2. Darian Porter's weird, man. I don't think I love it. I don't like that he's 24. I don't like the injury issues. 6'4", 200 is cool in theory, but we've done like the super tall guys a lot, and I'm not massively impressed by that as much anymore. So I don't know. Denzel Burke, I'm tempted to give him a 3 on PFF. He was in the 70s, but he's been in the 70s for 3 straight years, including one that was an 82, so at least a 70 last year in 2023. I do like the consistency of it. I'm just going to give him a 3. PFF likes him. That's the bottom line. Production is not very good. Two interceptions, 2 pass breakups. He did have 7 pass breakups the year before, but it was just 1 interception. In fact, he's got 4 picks in 4 years. And then it looks like he kind of alternates every year whether or not he's going to have a decent amount of pass breakups or not. So I'm not going to give him that. And then let's just check his RAS because he's right on the bubble. Oh, geez, he came in light. He's listed at 193. He's actually 186. So he's definitely a 2 as far as fit goes. He's a smaller guy. He's listed at 6'1", 193. He measured in 5'11", 186. It's not even close. Quincy Riley, he played about a half of a season, so I'm going to give him a 2. It looks like there's a couple years where he might have missed. It might be kind of bad. Let me go back to 2022. He's played several years. No, I just don't think he was starting, so I'm just going to give him a 2 as far as injuries. PFF, he had a 65. He's usually better than that, but you got a 65 this past year, so I'm just giving you a 2 on that. Production, 2 interceptions, 9 pass breakups. Last year, 3 interceptions, 10. I'll just give him a 3. That's decent enough. And then as far as fit, 6', 195. Let's just trust it. We'll give him a 3 on fit, even though it's close. I don't care. I think my biggest concern with him would probably be, first of all, he's been in college a long time, since 2019. He was with Middle Tennessee for 3 and then Louisville for 3. He had 4 really consistently good years, which is great, aside from, again, the fact that he's almost 24 years old. But then in your final year at 23, you end up getting injured and having your worst year. I mean, maybe he bounces back, but I don't super love that. Dorian Strong, 6'1", 185. Let me just check it. I just got this weird inkling that he came in small. Nope, dead on, 185. All right. So 2 as far as fit. Production, 2 interceptions, 6 pass breakups. Last year, 3 and 7. I'll just give it a 2. It's kind of borderline. Injuries. He looks like he's played for the most part. 2022, he only played 200 snaps, but that was 1 of 5 years. We'll cut him some slack. I'll give him a 3. He's fine. PFF, 70, 80, 70, 60, 70. I'm just going to give him a 3. He's pretty solidly consistent there. So, yeah, not bad for Mr. Dorian Strong. Little undersized, but like everybody in this class is undersized. It's very weird. Jacob Parrish is 5'10", 198. I won't knock him for the 5'10", although there's got to be a line somewhere. Maybe 5'10", we'll call the line. But height does need to be a factor in there, but we'll just leave it alone because he's about 200 pounds, so we're good. Maybe if he was like 5'10", 195, you'd kind of question it. Production, 1 interception, 3 pass breakups isn't great. 4.7 the last year, but I'm just going to give him a 2. That's not the greatest in the world, but he was redeemed by 2 years ago. Injuries, it looks like he's played pretty consistently. PFF, 70s for 3 straight years, so I'll give him a 3. I'm being a little bit more generous here, but if you're going to be in the 70s, it's got to be consistent. Noel Williams out of Cal. It's looking pretty solid. 6'1", 200, big boy. Production, 7 interceptions and 9 pass breakups. I should give him a 4 out of 3. Injuries, he has played 3,300 snaps in 5 seasons. This guy has played a ton of football. 800, 900, and 700 the last 3 years. He was at UNLV for 3, but that's ridiculous how much he's played. In PFF, almost an 80, and then pretty consistently 70s. So it was 78, 70, 67, 81 the last 4 years. I'm going to give him a 3. That's solid. We got another perfect entry here with Noel Williams out of Cal. I'm excited to go back and check that guy out. It's interesting. I want to see his RAS just because I don't know about Mr. Noel. I haven't gotten too far with corners. I think we're about as far as Denzel Burke, so probably top 100 is as far as I've gotten. So he came in at 6 foot 199, close enough. 4.5 speed is not the fastest in the world, but it's fine. So it's actually okay speed and poor explosion, and he did not do agility. But his size came in good, so whatever. Well, I was excited. All right, the most important entry of the day, Kobe Bryant. Got to check his RAS because he's listed at 175, so he might be our first undersized guy. What did I say he needed to be? 180? Let's see if he cracked 180 or not. Exactly 180 pounds. Hey-oh. All right, you saved yourself there. And he's 6'1", so we don't need to round down or anything. Production 4 and 4. It's not the worst. I mean, 4 interceptions is relatively high. 4 and 4 is what he did before. 3 and 8 before that. I don't know. I think that's fine. Okay. I don't even have a standard for him. I'm just giving him a 3. Injuries, he's been perfectly healthy. PFF, 70s for 3 straight years. We'll give him a 3. If he was a little bigger, he would have been 3s all the way across, but alas, he did not. But congrats on getting to 180. A lot of smaller corners. Za Frazier, 6'3", 185. So another smaller guy. Production, 6 interceptions, 5 pass breakups is solid. Injuries, he's only played 1 full year. I wonder if was he hurt last year or just didn't play? Looks like he might have been hurt. He didn't play till week 10. I don't know what happened. But it looks like he was healthy this past year for the most part, although he missed a couple games. He might get dinged here. Oh, okay. So it wasn't injury stuff. So here's a little background on your boy Za Frazier, just in case you weren't aware. So he actually was at SIU, Salukis. He played 4 games as a freshman at Southern Illinois before transferring. 2020 and 2021, he was at Coffeyville Community College. He got JUCO All-American honors and recorded significant stats. 2022, he transfers to UTSA as a highly touted recruit. You also got to remember the age is probably getting up there because by the time he got in there, there was that. Now, 2022, he only played 23 snaps, so my thought was possible injury issues. However, it says Frazier saw limited action in his first season, playing less than 100 defensive snaps across 2 years. He struggled with the playbook in 2022, but there's no explicit mention of injuries sidelining him. Then 2023, it says Frazier faced academic eligibility issues that kept him inactive until the 9th game of the season. He served as a scout team wide receiver during that period. No injuries documented. So quite a few issues, but nothing regarding what I'm asking right now, which is injury issues. So I'm going to let him pass on that. But let's see if I can figure out his age. So the robot doesn't know, but is estimating he's 24, turning 25. That's if he entered, depending on when he got into college initially. So if he was 18, he'd be 23, turning 24. If he was 19, he'd be 24, turning 25. So let's say he's at least 24 years old. That's one issue. Academic ineligibility is also not my favorite thing. I understand that, I mean, as somebody who was a terrible student, it doesn't mean you're necessarily an idiot, although I'm maybe a little bit of an idiot. But, just it's very demanding intellectual thing, football is. And if academics are something you're trying really hard at and you're still struggling, as opposed to just not trying, although that's not great either, is just not really trying. Those are potentially some other issues. But really just played 1 full year at UTSA and did very well. And has almost no tread on his tires. Although he's super old, so probably has arthritis. Jai Alexander, who I want to draft just because we already have Jai Alexander. I know nobody calls him Jai, but we should be, so we have Jai and Zai. 6'2", 194, so that's, I better check it. Oof, came in at 187, so he's way under. 6'1", 187, 4.56 40, by the way. He had poor speed and very poor explosion. 31.5-inch vert and a 9-foot 8-inch broad jump. Real rough athleticism there, and he didn't do the he didn't do the things he struggles with, apparently, which is the agility drills. But let's see, production, 2 interceptions, 4 pass breakups, 2.5. I'm just going to give him a 2. That's kind of mid-range. Injuries, I'm not seeing a ton. Looks like he played for the most part. He, by the way, Southeast Louisiana for 3 years and then LSU for 2 years. PFF, he had an 82 coverage grade, and that's pretty consistent, although his first year at LSU was a little bit rough, but don't care. We'll call it a 3. I think the RAS is the thing that scares me the most about Zy Alexander right now. All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 more. Tommy Hill, currently at 133, out of Nebraska, 6', 205. He's plenty big. He's definitely looks like he played a half a season here, so I'm going to give him a 2. Although, what happened in 2022? He played 3 games and then didn't play anymore. Let me just see if that's why. Because 2 out of 3 years is not good. Oh, he switched to wide receiver. Okay, well, I'll just give him a 2 then. Although, did he switch in 2024? No, I think he was hurt in 2024. All right. Production, he had 1 interception, 1 pass breakup, but that was his hurt year. The year before, it was 4 and 6. I'm just going to give him a 2. I don't know. And then PFF gave him a 68. He had an 87 the year before, but a 60 before that. I'm just going to give him a 2. It's kind of all over the place. He had 1 good year, which is his 1 healthy year, but I'm not going to necessarily give him credit for that. Jordan Hancock, 6'1", 195. Let's check that just to see where he falls on that. He's actually listed as a safety. I don't know why he's a corner. Well, I guess that's what people think he's going to be. I don't know. Yeah, right at 195, so that's solid. Production, he had 1 interception, 6 pass breakups. The year before was 2 and 2. He's got 3 interceptions and 8 pass breakups in 4 years. It's not very great. I could even put a 1 there, but I won't. 6 pass breakups is, I guess, saving him. Injuries, looks like he has not really had any. And then PFF, 70 for 2 years. I'm just going to give him a 2. It's not bad, but it's not great. Not enough consistency there for me to give him a pass, but he's fine. Looks like, by the way, he's listed as a safety via PFF, but he's one of those safety/slot type of guys. Upton Stout, exact same thing, safety/slot. He is 5'9", 182. So I'm actually going to put him in the 2. Should I put him in a 1? I'm going to put him at a 1. He's kind of, let me see what he actually measured in at. 5'8", 181. He's definitely a 1 as far as his size. Production, 1 interception, 1 pass breakup. The year before, 1 and 3. Tempted to just give him a 1 on that, too. In 2 years, he had 2 interceptions and 4 pass break. I'm just giving him a 1. Nobody else has a 1. Somebody's got to have a 1. He's getting it. He's fine on injuries, and then PFF gave him about an 80 for about 3 years in a row, so he's solid there. Just massively undersized. Probably just going to be sticking in the slot, so maybe it's fine, but 5'8", 181 is not the greatest. Might be a safety. I have no idea. Bilal Cone, 6'2", 190. We'll just put him in the 2 category there. He's out of Western Michigan. Production, 1 interception, 6 pass breakups, 1 and 7. I'm just going to give him a 2. Injuries, doesn't look like he really had any. And PFF, 70s for 2 years. He gets a 2. Justin Wally, 5'11", 195. Let's double check that. He came in at 5'10", 190. Nice try, pal. Production was 2 and 5. The year before was 1 and 5. I'll just give him a 2. Injuries, looks like he played about a half a year. It was 500 snaps, but it was weeks 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14. Just giving him a 2. He missed a decent chunk there. PFF gave him in the 70s. He's pretty consistent. It was like 70, 70, 80, 70 in 4 years. I'll cut him some slack and give him a 3 there. Good speed, though. 4.4 for a late round guy. All right, last one. O'Donnell Fortune. We'll see about that. O'Donnell Fortune, 6'1", 185. We'll just put him as a 2. Production, 3 and 2, 2 and 5. I'll give him a 2 on that. It was okay. Injuries, doesn't look like he's had much. PFF gave him a 90. The year before that was a 70. The year before that was an 80. So he's definitely solid there. So, all right. So nobody was terrible via PFF. That's one of the takeaways here. Of the guys that were solid, I guess, O'Donnell Fortune, Justin Wally, Upton Stout, Zaire Alexander, Za Frazier, Kobe Bryant, Noel Williams, Jacob Parrish, Dorian Strong, Denzel Burke, Trey Amos, Benjamin Morrison, Siobhan Revel, Jahdae Barron, Travis Hunter were all fine. Either they had 80s or 90s or they were consistent 70s. Injuries are a big issue with this group, real big. Siobhan Revel, Benjamin Morrison, Justin Wally, Will Johnson, Maxwell Hairston, Quincy Riley, Tommy Hill, and Darian Porter, with Darian Porter being the one that scares me the most. Although some of these guys, like Revel, whatever, might have more serious recent injuries. But as far as just consistent, Darian Porter. But it was a third of the corners having, and again, I'm being pretty gracious here. Guys miss 1 or 2 games, this year, 1 or 2 last year. I just kind of leave it alone. Production was terrible. And by terrible, I just mean like of the guys that were really like, oh man, they did a good job. Mostly 2s, with the only guy, Upton Stout, getting the only 1, but Quincy Riley, Benjamin Morrison, Za Frazier, Kobe Bryant, Noel Williams, Trey Amos, Jahdae Barron, and Travis Hunter were the only ones whose production I thought was actually solid. And then fit is also less than half. As far as, the Packers guys are about 195 and up generally. The only ones that fit that, Darian Porter, Tommy Hill, Will Johnson, Jordan Hancock, Azaria Thomas, Jacob Parrish, Quincy Riley, Noel Williams, Trey Amos, and Jahdae Barron. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 that did not. Only one of them was really, really undersized to where I thought that they wouldn't do it. But also, the guys that are in the 2 range, sort of the, 180 to 194 range, that to me is like the low end for the Packers. So you got to show something, and of that group, how many had solid production? Benjamin Morrison, Za Frazier, Kobe Bryant, Travis Hunter. Okay, well, Travis Hunter's out, so that leaves 3. All right, of those guys who didn't have injury issues, Kobe Bryant and Za Frazier. And then PFF was the same thing. So those are the 2 guys that were undersized, that didn't have injury issues, and had good production. Other than that, I got questions. You know what I mean? Especially with the injury stuff. There's an additional 4 that don't fit and also have injury issues. So, there's a decent quantity, I think, of corners. I don't know how many you feel super great about, and we haven't even gotten to personal grades of just watching them and liking them. Some of these guys you would just remove from the list in general when you look at injuries and their size and things of that nature. If PFF was our own sort of grades, we'd have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 that we liked. 3 of them would be removed due to injury issues. And then however many more would be removed due to either a lack of production or fit. But the bottom line is there's just maybe 12 corners, which feels like a lot, but when you look at 32 teams, we're talking 1/3 of teams are going to end up drafting these guys, assuming none of them draft more than 1. And again, some of them are not even going to be draftable. Jahdae Barron and Travis Hunter might already be gone. So we'd be looking at maybe 10. Not saying these guys are 100% disqualified. I'm just saying there's a lot of asterisks next to these corners. They might be phenomenal. There might be a lot of, 5'11", 185-pound phenomenal football players if you can just kind of get over the injury history type stuff, But anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. You guys have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you tonight, tomorrow, whatever. Have a good one. Bye-bye.